Hello, David Kenworthy here. 1st of the 10th, 2022. Today we're going to establish the length of the base of the Giza Great Pyramid and look at the reason why there are 1760 cubits in it, except for when we use the Egyptian royal cubit. Now this is Piazzi Smythe's, or Smith, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, his book, where he writes about how the base length, socket to socket, of the Giza Great Pyramid was originally measured. And he said that the French party in 1799 cleared away the hills of sand and debris at the north, east and northwest corners, and reached beneath them the levelled surface of the living rock itself on which the pyramid was originally founded, there discovering two rectangular hollows carefully and truly cut into the rock, as if for sockets. For the basal cornerstones, they measured the distance between them with much geodesic skill, and found it to be equal to 763.62 English feet. The same distance being measured 37 years afterwards by Colonel Howard Vyse, guided by another equally sure direction of the original building as 764 English feet. We may take for the present problem, where a proportion is all that is required, the mean, or 763.81 feet. And my suggestion is that it's 763.888 feet, which gives a base length of 666.666 recurring imperial inches. And that is so close to these two measures that it's beyond argument based on what we're going to look at. So why are there 1760 cubits in this base length? And the base of one side is 9166.666 inches. And if you divide that by 1760, it gives a cubit of 20.8333. And I've got a paper here written by Gary Osborne. Sorry, that's not it. This is it. And Gary goes through what I've just read to you and determines the length of the base of the pyramid. And he agrees that this is the determination that we should all be looking at, and I 100% agree with him. But he comes out in this paper with something that stands out that we should be using to calculate the length of the royal cubit. And it's this section at the end, and it says the wheel, the meter, the royal cubit and pi. Although it's often taken for granted that it was the ancient Egyptians who had built the Great Pyramid, and argued by those who believe this without question that the ancient Egyptians could not have been familiar with pi, it's very easy and simple to find it. All you need to do is invent the wheel. Well, we're talking here about an Egyptian chariot wheel with 6 spokes. However, the wheel has to be exactly 1 meter in diameter for the circumference of the wheel to naturally measure out the exact number of pi. And he then goes on to say that the practical length of the Egyptian royal cubit is 0.5236 meters. But subsequent to this, I've been in contact with Gary, and he agrees with me that the Eye of Horus meter is indeed 39.375 inches, and that's what we should be using in this calculation. And he uses pi as 3.1416, and we should actually be using pi as 22/7 in this calculation. So we're going to have a look at it. And why 1760 cubits in the GP base length? I put except for the Royal Egyptian cubit. Step 1, establish the original base length. Well, we can use Colonel Vie's measure for that. And this is it. This is what we're working to. Now, metrologist Wim Verhart has worked out that the Egyptians were using the square root of pi to work out the number of cubits in the GP base length. He doesn't use Egyptian pi, but when we do use Egyptian pi, we find it's the only version of pi that actually has a square root, a very simple square root. So this is Egyptian pi, 256/81, and it's there in decimal, and we can take the square root of that by just inserting the function against that number. And there it is. That's 16/9, which is the square root of Egyptian pi. And according to Wim, it's 1,000 times square root of pi. So 1,000 puts 1777.77 cubits in the base length. And when we get this number of inches, the cubit is 20.625. And I've put that's a base 99 cubit. So that's a base 100 base length of cubits, and that's a base 99 cubit. And how does that work? Well, if we take 99% of that, we get 1760. And if we take that as 99%, 100% gives a cubit of 20.833, the base 100 cubit. So although there are 17777 base length cubits when we use the Egyptian royal cubit, when we use the geodetic cubit, there are 20.833. And we can use this Egyptian chariot wheel that Gary Osborne has identified, using the meter as the diameter of the chariot wheel. And we can use this using Berryman's meters from his book. We can use the modern meter. We can use the Eye of Horus meter, which I've identified in yellow, and we can look at what that is. I've already written a paper about this. It's 40 multiplied by 63/64. So it gives that version there. And what I'm saying is that, because it's the Eye of Horus meter, it will produce, using this method, the Egyptian royal cubit of 20.625 when we use pi as 22/7, because the Giza Great Pyramid is designed against a circle with a radius of 7, and the base of the Giza Great Pyramid is the ratio of 44:7, so it works out as 1760 cubits in the base and 280 in the height, and that's very well known. But when we use the royal cubit, there are this number of the square root of pi, Egyptian pi, in the base, and that's what separates the royal cubit out as being used by the ancient Egyptians. So if we go through these calculations, the Egyptian chariot wheel, when it's Berryman's first meter that he identifies in his book, 39.366 inches, we multiply by pi of 2800/891, we get 12370,909, divide that by 6 to give the cubit, 6 spokes in the wheel, and each spoke is a cubit length apart. We get a cubit of 20.61818181 inches. When we use the meter, and I've used real pi here that is produced by this program, as accurate as pi can possibly be, we get this amount for the circumference, and this is the cubit, giving a base of 36280.8. And we can see why the modern meter is producing a base that's very close to the dash measure. And that's become very familiar in these analyses that I'm doing. And then we get to the The actual meter that was being used, the Eye of Horus meter that was being used by the Egyptians, and it works with pi as 22/7, produces 123.75 inches in the circumference, and that's 6 Egyptian royal cubits of 20.625. Gives a Giza base of 36300. But that's when there's 1760 cubits in the base. When there are this number, it produces this figure. So that (366.666), that's the Colonel Vise measure. This is the Colonel Vise measure when the base 99 cubit is used, which is 40 inches times 99/100, we get 39.6. That's 3 Indus Valley feet. And we use pi against that as 25,000 divided by 7920, and we get 125, giving 20.833. And then when the meter is 40 inches, we use pi as 3.125, which is Babylonian pi. We get 125 again and 20.833. So we can see that the Giza base is designed against a geodetic cubit of 20.833. So that's multiplied by 1760 gives 36666.6, which is the intention of the Egyptian designers. And that has been most certainly proved by the work of the French savants and Colonel Vise. And that's all I want to say on this. But there's an obsession with looking at the pavement level. And we should really be looking at the socket level to understand how the height of the Great Giza Pyramid can be calculated. So we got the base, we know it's 44/7. And that's the height. We know Berryman's Egyptian foot is 11.66666 recurring. So we divide that